Today's episode is a special episode. This is an episode that I was keen to do, and I was keen to do with Jatin, an American. And I'll tell you why I mentioned that, an American, because the film that we are going to cover today is Born on 4th July. This is the Oliver Stone Tom Cruise film. And so, what you'll hear is a discussion on the film, on and around the film Born on 4th July. It was released on 20th December 1989. There will be separate discussion around the release and the reception of the film later in the show. The story of the film, in short, is as follows. In mid 1960s, a suburban New York teenager, Ron Kovic, played by Tom Cruise, enlists in Marines and fulfills what he sees as his patriotic duty. During his second tour in Vietnam, he accidentally kills a fellow soldier during a retreat and later becomes permanently paralyzed in the battle. Returning home to an uncaring veterans administration, bureaucracy, and to people on both the sides of political divide who do not necessarily understand fully what he went through, Kovic becomes an impassioned critic of the war. As of now, I can share only this much. Directed by Oliver Stone, based on the book by same name by Ron Kovic, a screenplay by Oliver Stone and Ron Kovic. It was nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Writing, and Best Actor in Leading Role. The film won awards in categories of direction, editing. How a film cannot be a best film despite having the best direction and best editing is that infamous kind of Academy Award conundrum for me. Maybe we'll talk about it later in the show and we'll hear what Jatin has to say about it. This is Born on the 4th July.
Yeah, great introduction there. I think it summarizes everything one needs to know about this film. And hopefully, if you haven't, then probably it might intrigue some of our listeners to watch this movie. This is not your typical Tom Cruise movie, the movies that make millions and billions of dollars. This is not Top Gun, and this is not Mission Impossible. So this movie, for me, as a first impression, I remember the first viewing I had was in bits and pieces about 20 some years ago. And when I watched it, I was amazed that, oh, Tom Cruise does these movies as well. Because until that point of time, I had only known him as a Top Gun and Mission Impossible guy. So I was like, okay, you know what? This is actually pretty good. And I distinctly remember, I don't want to go into the details, but I distinctly remember the scene in the house
Mm-hmm.
in the movie, and I was like, wow, man, this guy can act too. So
Mm-hmm.
so that was my first impression of the movie, and also the anti-war narrative that brings in it. So I was like, okay, this guy can do this too. So I was very interested. And I then again got interested in Oliver Stone himself. And I was like, okay, who's this guy? Who made this movie? But anywho, that was my overall first impression. What was yours?
Okay, I'll share my impression. I watched it long time ago. I think easily maybe 15 to 20 years ago. That was my first viewing. I had no idea what the film is all about. Okay, I came absolutely fully cold, as they say, to the film, with no, not even, I don't think I even had watched like a promo or a clip, nothing. And which is why I really enjoyed the film. And when I say enjoyed is quote unquote. This is not one of those films that you enjoy, but then at the same time, uh, I am someone who's kind of fascinated with this whole experiment called United States of America. So from that perspective, also, I was very impressed with the film. This is something I noticed that with any war film, it's a very simplistic template because in Sanskrit, so there is this quote, especially used in literature and in Indian literature for that matter. This is a quote which is often used, is called Yuddhasya Katha Ramya. That means war stories are the best stories. And those stories are usually easy to tell because these are usually the stories of bravery. And then you have like clear cut delineation between us and them. This is not one of those films. So this film, for me, for the first time, I saw that conflict, that for the first time you are questioning lots of choices. As a soldier also, you are making lots of choices. Although you are sent there to fight a war, but um, at the same time you are questioning, you are going through that kind of moral quandary constantly, that what I am doing, am I how I'm going to live with this later in the life. So that is one. And what I liked about the film is, number one, the first part, which is almost a romantic, um, uh, I don't know, romantic glimpse into the suburban American life and what's not to like there, where clearly, yeah, there is a meritocracy, there is a constant encouragement, and there is a competitive spirit running ye- everywhere. And at the same time, there is a discussion um, in a peer group where Tom Cruise's character, Ron Kovic, and his younger peer group, they are having this discussion about what it means to love your country, what it means to be patriotic. And I don't think, yeah, we've seen such scenes elsewhere. And those scenes come as not like people spouting lines which are not fitting to their age, experience, and intellect. They were spouting lines which were actually fitting to their age, experience, and intellect, and which is why it was very appealing. So, in fact, I liked that part. Uh, and at the same time, I like the arc, the complete arc where it becomes critical, and which is where I think this is the part which, obviously, I'm someone who grew up on the diet of Indian films where you don't necessarily see ever criticizing the forces, criticizing security forces for that matter. You are actually having that fight with the forces, with security, with US Marines. And in the end, almost you feel like, yeah, you are winning this. Again, this is a very reflective of the American values. This is almost like a triumph of the First Amendment, like freedom of expression, that this is my expression. Yeah, this is against this, but this is my expression, and which was very heartening for me. So in many ways, for me, it was almost uh, kind of a romantic postcard of American life, American modern history. And this is kind of only in America, okay, quote unquote. So this is a phrase which have it, you can't use this phrase anywhere else. Okay, only in India. If you say, there will be a mirth. Okay, people will laugh at this phrase. If you say only in Britain, where currently I am, people will laugh even louder because usually that is a joke. Something has happened where which is possible only in Britain, where people got so drunk only in Britain. Okay, so but then this is a story which is only in America. This is possible only in America. So I know I'm almost kind of watching this film from rose tinted glasses, but then for me, that was the postcard image of this is US. And this is the version of US that I loved. I'm going to stop here. That was my first impression.
So you are referring to the scene at the dinner table, right? That they were sitting around in different ages and groups, and the way they were sort of going chatting with each other, and how what does being patriotic means in our sense, correct?
That's one.
Primarily, that's what you were
Then
referring to.
correct. And there is one more scene where the friends are in a diner, and where Tom Cruise's character is saying that this is our WW2. Okay, this is our opportunity. Okay, because obviously we were not there when World War II was fought. That was their chance. This is our chance. At the same time, at the other end of the table, so you have not other end, literally on the other side. So there is a friend who is going to join a management college, who is going to do the famous MBA, which became a full on rage in decades to come. But then he's saying that no, I'm going to do MBA. We'll come to this part also later because I have it in my notes somewhere. But then, so these were discussions which help you understand the film better. Someone like me who is not set his foot in the US even once, who has but read about US so much. So for me, this is almost a cultural ticket. So I got to see through my window a glimpse into the American culture. That okay, this is how the students must have interacted at that time.
Is definitely American. And from this one thing that I can definitely say regarding that, uh, the guy who wants to do MBA, there is a quote that he says. That he says, Better read than dead," right? This is actually a switching of the two words. He is chanting, "Better dead than read, better dead than read." Now, the red here is communism.
Hmm.
And this was, I think, back in what? Before the fall of the,
Soviet
uh,
Union.
correct, exactly. So during Cold War. So that kind of made an impression on me when I saw that. Now, when I heard this line, "better read than dead," so there was the counter argument to that in this movie, and it just made it so that, oh, it can only happen in America. So there is the way you feeling about it is this is a postcard of an American life. It's a very I'm glad that Oliver Stone was able to put it, and then you were able to get it out of it like that. So I think this kudos to Oliver Stone for sure to bring it out exactly the way it is.
That actually nicely brings us to the kind of work of Oliver Stone. Um, do you want to talk about Oliver Stone and
Yeah,
how would you
Oliver
rate this one?
Stone. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So, Oliver Stone, before this movie, he was already well known and he has already had a lot of awards under his belt. So, in I don't know if it was his first movie or not, but he wrote a movie called as Midnight Express. This was in 1979. This movie was shot by a British film director called Alan Parker. Now, Alan Parker is the same guy who did the movie for Pink Floyd's The Wall, that album. I don't
Yeah.
know if anybody's seen it, but this is like the surreal experience. And if you like Pink Floyd's The Wall and his music,
Another
Roger
brick in the
Waters,
wall. Another brick in
another
the
brick
wall.
in the wall. Exactly. Right, right, right. So all of the videos that we have seen, they come from a movie.
Hmm.
Now, so if you have seen Alan Parker's work and if you have seen Midnight Express, then Midnight Express is about this American guy who goes to Turkey and Istanbul, and then he gets into trouble and then goes to jail. And then what happens after? Okay, it's absolutely like sets the tone for how Oliver Stone, in a way, rings all of his movies to the bare bones. That, like in this movie, the hardship eventually, I'm not going to go into details. I don't know if that's the right time right now, but the grittiness of anything. So Midnight Express, I believe, won or was nominated for Academy Award of Best Screenplay. Then he wrote Scarface, that was directed by Brian De Palma. Now in Scarface, there is a very famous bathtub scene with the chainsaw, which that one scene is scarier than the entire Chainsaw Massacre, right? So because it was real and the way it was like, okay, hey, where is the dough, right? Where is yayo?
Hmm.
That's the slang for
Yeah.
cocaine. Anywho, then he did. I actually, after watching Born on the 4th of July for this second time for this podcast, I also wanted to go back and watch Platoon because it looked like it had better ratings. Uh, but uh, uh, in between I think the two war movies, Platoon and this, he also did Wall Street. So Wall Street is actually even as much American as this movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
whole capitalism and greed,
Yes.
all of that, right? I mean, think about it.
Yes.
I mean, this is the same guy. On one side, he's making an anti-war movie, and at the second side, he brings out. I don't know if it was his intention to make Gordon Gekko a hero or not, but
Mm.
apparently he became a hero. But the way he wrote Wall Street and where he shot Wall Street is Wall Street is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Born on the 4th of July, I believe, uh, to shoot this movie, he himself also is a war veteran. He served in Vietnam, Oliver Stone, and I think he also did two tour duties, just like Ron Kovic did. But I think it was luckier than Ron Kovic that he wasn't
Yep.
injured. But I think he has seen combat too, Oliver Stone. So it was a more of a personal experience that, okay, there is some guy who did two tour duties. Probably he witnessed what Ron Kovic witnessed. So it sort of became a personal experience making this movie as well. But at this point of time, I would think that it was towards a downward trajectory of his overall filmmaking. In again, my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, because after that also he did JFK. All of these, if you think about it, these are like American movies. Like
Yep.
very, very American
Yep.
at the core. Like Tony Montana wants to come here and want to be American, right? I mean, the
Mm.
world is yours, right?
Yeah.
So there's a common theme in all of his movies, and he's first of all is a this is an example of this cliche, if you may, that a writer can be a really good director. So a writer director,
Mm.
sort of a co-credit or a double sword that he wields, is something
Yes.
that is he's pretty good at it. He knows his craft. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think what you touched upon, I completely agree. That looks like this was like a purple patch that Oliver Stone hit during that time, where yeah, he was just producing hits after hits after hits, and not just hits, quality hits, where yeah, I mean they'll compel a discussion even now. Like if you pick up any of these films, you mentioned Wall Street, but I believe means he also was on that Vietnam trip for some time because he made this trilogy, right? Yeah, because he made Platoon, and which was not exactly followed by, but then the next Vietnam film that he made is obviously this one, Born on 4th July. And the third one that he made was the Heaven and Earth.
right,
From the three, again, it's kind of minding your own experience, but at the same time, I think in the Heaven and Earth and Born on 4th July, yeah, there was original source material, and then he added his own kind of take on it, and then made it into a fairly good films, all three. Heaven and Earth, not so much, but then at least Platoon is fairly good. I think 4th July is even better, and then the third one is like it's kind of I think he just wanted to use up everything that he had, like image bank, visual bank that he had about Vietnam, that he wanted to use. So it's kind of Vietnam trilogy. So this is the second one in the trilogy. um, he is a Purple Heart honoree. So he
yes,
himself won a Purple Heart at Vietnam. So much like along like so does the Ron Kovic himself. He made a couple of trips to Vietnam. So one trip was as a teacher. Oliver Stone was a teacher. He was not a trooper. He was not a soldier. Second trip where he was a soldier. And then again in both the trips, actually his experience was fairly mixed. And then what he saw was a lot of like mismatches and contradictions, and which is why yeah, that experience kind of stayed with him, and so he could use up that experience. Will not get into other Oliver Stone films, but I think this is one of the good Stone films. I think he is quite a prolific filmmaker. To his credit, I believe he's made more than 30 films. But then not all films are great. But then in this, especially in this time period, he definitely made quite a few very good films. I agree with you. Wall Street is a terrific film and very, very well made, very well acted. What about his casting choices? Because this was quite an interesting casting choice.
So I will tell you again, my first impression was like Tom Cruise can do that because this insane to me because I again when I saw it I thought Tom Cruise was like Akshay Kumar, that oh he's just gonna do Khiladi movies, right, and just action movies, like there is nothing that I can expect more from him. But then I saw this like okay, yeah, this is great, but there is one definitely so Tom Cruise top of his game in here. Also Willem Dafoe is fantastic choice. And I mean, Willem Dafoe was in Platoon as well, right? I mean, there is this famous poster. I think that's Willem Dafoe.
Yes, yes.
Who else that you think, on this, the
No, I think
casting
Tom
overall?
Cruise was the master stroke in this case. And I think obviously it was not, I don't think it was by design completely. I think, again, this is something we've seen with a lot of good casting choices that stars align and then you end up with this. Um, I think I'll stay on Tom Cruise and then we'll come to the Tom other choices. With Tom Cruise, I like Tom Cruise for a simple reason that I like watching him on screen. Okay. And so this is something not many people kind of appreciate, that the reason you need a star with a look, because you need that engagement. Okay.
Oh, the
If you want,
chiseled
and no, the
feature
idea,
is what you
it's a
mean?
screen presence. No, the thing is, so there is something called a screen presence. So screen presence
Ah,
is that people should be able to look at this person for 90 minutes or so. Okay.
not some
Yeah.
ugly ass face.
Exactly. And no, which is why, yeah, because people kind of always question this, that why do you need to have certain looks to be an actor? Okay, acting is something else and all that. I don't think they understand this part, that you should be able to see this face on screen for this long. So that's the most important part. And at the same
You're
time,
gonna you're going to break heart of Nawazuddin and all the likes there.
no, I think they have, okay, I'm going to put it this way, that screen presence means that you should have like X factor also. Like from say Indian film industry, Nana Patekar is a classic case where he has that X factor, and which is that although he doesn't have the conventional looks, but then his face is fairly arresting. He can hold the screen, and
Right,
then
right.
you
The
can still watch
personality
him.
that they bring. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
yeah.
Right,
And which
right.
is why most of the actors, they kind of fall on this side of like better looks than not better looks, and which is where I think Tom Cruise kind of scores. I know that his looks kind of go against him, but then I've always found him fairly sincere, and at the same time in his effort, means you can't fault him for the effort. Okay, in this case also, yeah, there are these like lots and lots of stories where to play a paraplegic, yeah, he was willing to undergo a medical treatment which will kind of paralyze him for 2 weeks and they can shoot all the scenes. So he was willing to go to that length. And clearly there was some insurance concern that like one of the production controllers raised, and only then they stopped short of that idea. Otherwise, he was quite willing to go
All
down
the
that
way.
route all the way. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah, he was
yeah.
willing to do that. So it's not that he's just willing to jump off the cliffs. He is also willing to do this. One may say that this is the whole defeat of the whole craft of acting, because what's the point if you are going to paralyze yourself? Just try acting.
That is the famous Laurence Olivier
Laurence
and
Olivier
Dustin
and
Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman story. Yeah. But at the same time, I think if I'm going to pay a ticket, then I want that experience. And then, especially on cinema, these things do matter, because the moment you have that realism, and then you can do a lot with camera angles, with how you are going to place the scene, cut the scene. You can do a lot. So I like Tom Cruise. I know he was not universally liked by everyone, even before the film. in the film, in this film also, it's not that all the reviews were positive for him. People liked him, but then not loved him. They thought that great, but then still he has few limited expressions, and that is what he is deploying here as well. Would you say that this is Tom Cruise's best acting effort?
I loved Tom Cruise in this movie. I think he did an amazing job in this movie. And you brought in the physical aspect, right? I mean, him being his own stunt man, correct? So if I mean, I when I was watching it this time, I was 100% sure that okay, this guy probably did not use a harness when he wrapped his legs around and trying to walk on those crutches. And usually, when you see actors on wheelchairs, they are on a flat surface. But there is a scene in the movie where he's on a uneven ground and grass. So I'm like, this guy is actually doing this for 100%. There is possible that he might trip, fall, but he wants to go all the way. And but that's the physical aspect of it. Tom Cruise, uh, uh, it's probably not as much well known being a good actor. You're right. And if one wants to see Tom Cruise as an actor, as a serious actor, then this is one example. There is also another example that people should watch is Eyes Wide Shut. They should also watch Magnolia, you know. And if nothing else, there was a movie, a funny movie called Tropic Thunder, or
Hmm.
Tropic of Thunder, something like
Tropic
that.
Thunder, yeah, yeah, Ben Stiller,
Tropic Thunder, right?
yeah, Ben
Right,
Stiller.
exactly. Everybody who will walk away from this movie is gonna remember what he does at the end after the credits roll, correct?
Yeah.
So that's Tom Cruise. That's the actor Tom Cruise, and not the money-making machine Tom Cruise. So I'm actually fascinated. I'm really good. I'm really glad that he did this movie. And I think he did a really good job at it. No matter what, the movie brings out or not, but doesn't matter. He, I think, was honest and sincere in his performance in this movie.
Was he the first choice?
That I don't know. Because I think at that point of time, Oliver Stone was obsessed by Charlie Sheen. So, Platoon has Charlie Sheen, and then Wall Street has Charlie Sheen. So I was like, okay, what happened? Why wasn't Charlie Sheen here? But again, I don't know. I didn't dig into the story. But who was the other
No.
choice?
Okay. So Oliver Stone, in fact, wanted Tom Cruise for Wall Street, and but then on paper, I believe Tom Cruise was not too keen to do Wall Street. And but then Born on 4th July was anyway a known book, and which was discussed, which was kind of in the circle for some time, and it was optioned by Oliver Stone, but it was kind of a known project by that time. And so which is when that was offered, so Tom Cruise thought of taking that up. Wall Street would be too close to what he had already played, like a urban guy, urban youth, and all. So here,
That
I believe,
risky
yeah, he wanted
business
that
and
acting
all
challenge.
that.
So that could be a
Yeah.
reason why Tom Cruise said yes. Tom Cruise was not their first choice. So they went through obviously Charlie Sheen. They thought, I can't see Charlie Sheen in this role, but I think I don't know. I mean, I know Oliver Stone also kind of yeah, indulged with some kind of substance abuse, and then yeah, it could be some drugs that he was on, and when he thought of Charlie Sheen in this role, but I think that's fine. Sean Penn. So they thought of Sean Penn. So Sean Penn could have been an interesting choice. They
Yeah.
also thought of Nicolas Cage.
Hmm.
So Nick Cage,
Interesting.
actually Nicolas Cage, I like as an actor. I think he's a very good actor. His choices could be dodgy, and his recent choices were really dodgy. But then at the same time, I like him as an actor. But I don't think he really disappoints you when it comes to acting. Um, like Raising Arizona, again,
100%.
nice.
I was
Yeah,
just gonna mention that
yeah,
at this point of time, what movie Oliver Stone would have watched to think Nicolas Cage as a possible option? I think
yeah.
Raising Arizona
Yeah,
has to be.
but I think the younger portion, I don't see any other actor doing that part really well. The older portion, I think Sean Payne or Nick Cage, yeah, would have nailed. But then the younger version, there is that innocence, there is that
Correct.
raw anger. So that part, I think, um, I can't picture anyone else apart from Tom Cruise. But now I'm going to mention one more name. Now this name is quite interesting. So at one point, Al Pacino was going to do Yeah,
Oh,
Born on 4th July.
yeah.
And so obviously this is like right after when he did two Godfather films. So Al Pacino
Hmm.
was kind of a reigning star, superstar,
Yep.
both Pacino and De Niro. So every big project so were offered to these two guys. And then these two kind of decided whether they want to take it up or not. So this project also was offered to Al Pacino. Al Pacino had a manager called, I believe his name was Martin Bregman. He was Pacino's manager as well as he was a producer. So they bought the book, and Oliver Stone and Billy Friedman or Friedman, whichever pronunciation you go with or you prefer. So they were writing the script, and so that was the script, and that was the script Pacino was keen on. So Pacino already rehearsed for 6 months on the script. So this happened in late 70s. So Pacino was fairly serious about this project, but Billy Friedman backed out, and which is when Pacino considered this as a director's project. So this is you can't just go on the strength of the book. He thought that there has to be a director who has to buy into this vision. And when Billy Friedman backed out, Al Pacino also backed out. And Al Pacino said, "This is not for me." Fun part is, by that time, Al Pacino was already 37 years old. But nobody cast a single doubt that Al Pacino cannot play this. Tom Cruise, on the other hand, was 27 when he played this role. But then still people had doubts. But then I think that's a difference between how Al Pacino was perceived and how Tom Cruise is perceived, especially on the scale of acting prowess.
Sure. I mean, I can understand. I mean, he done in addition to Godfather, I mean, he also did Scarface, right? I mean,
So
he's
this
doing very.
story is, to be honest, I was very doubtful of this story. Okay, when I
Hmm.
got to know that Al Pacino, and which is when I thought, no, I need a verification of this story. And
Okay.
which is when, yeah, I have this book.
Oh, the
Okay.
authorized biography. Okay.
Yeah. So this is, okay, the
Uh-huh.
way, so this is actually quite an interesting book. So what this book
Mm-hmm.
is basically is there is a journalist called as Lawrence Grobel. So Lawrence Grobel, he did like a lot of long interviews with Al Pacino. And those long interviews are printed in a book. That's what basically this book is all about. Okay. And which is when I thought, okay, I need a verification of this story. And then I found a verification of the story. Now I'm going to read exact quote by Al Pacino.
Let's go.
And where is it? I was hoping to make, okay, this is the last sentence of his answer, of his first answer. So I was hoping to make Born on the 4th July at that time. It was too close. Whatever happened to that project? That was a go project. That means I was there. Billy Friedman and Oliver Stone wrote a terrific screenplay, but Billy couldn't do it for some reason. Apparently, there was a studio that wouldn't let him out of a commitment. When a director is taking on a picture of that size and dimension, it is his picture. I had an interest in making it with Billy. So suddenly, Friedman is out of the picture. Now what? I wasn't going to make that movie. So the story is true, and Al Pacino was. I had an interest. That's a polite way to
Right.
say Al Pacino was
Right.
also going to produce it
Wow.
along with Billy Friedman. People who
Hmm.
don't know who Billy Friedman is the one who made Exorcist, French Connection,
Oh,
to name a few.
oh, Friedkin. William Friedkin? Oh,
Friedkin, no, Friedman. So this is
Friedman? Was
William
it
Friedman.
Friedkin? No, William Friedkin.
No,
No, wait a
it's,
second. Wait.
yeah. So it's Billy Friedman. Yeah. So uh, Billy Friedkin. Okay. Billy Friedkin, you're right.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry.
okay, okay.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, no. Now I was like, oh, if
No,
William
no, no.
Friedkin was involved in
Friedkin.
Born on the 4th of July and he
Yeah,
backed out, I would back out too. Yes,
exactly. So
100%.
that is what happened. Yeah, that is what happened. So yeah, so Billy Friedkin basically was going to direct, and which is when Al Pacino was on board. So again, this is one of those things where Al Pacino was not meant to play this character, and then it went to Tom Cruise eventually.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, William Friedkin is just, I mean, come on, crazy. And what was that movie that Al Pacino did with him? Cruising. Yeah, Cruising. When he plays an undercover cop in this S&M kind of gay undercover, sort of underbelly of New
CD
York,
underbelly, yeah.
seedy underbelly, yeah, and they're looking for a serial killer there. So that was, it's not very well uh, reviewed movie, but I can 100% believe that Al Pacino believed in Friedkin. But it would have been something, yeah, it'll be interesting.
It would
I
have
don't
been
know. This
interesting.
is one of
I
those questions,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, like what if,
What if, yeah, Al Pacino had played this role? I would have loved it. Yeah, I like Al Pacino, I think, more than Tom Cruise. So,
right, right.
yeah, I would have loved to watch that version.
Wow. Huh.
Yes.
Something I learned today.
Yeah. Um, is there any scene that you want to mention?
There is this one scene talking about the innocence in the beginning of the movie
Hmm.
and how impressionable Tom Cruise is, which actually hits on something that I'm going to mention later on. Uh, that he's he's home, right?
Hmm.
And then he knows that he's missing this prom dance with the girl
Yep.
that he really likes.
Yeah.
And then he's sitting at home and things like that, and mom wants him to be home, and then dad is like, what are you doing here? You should be out there, right?
Hmm.
So there is this very early seeds of some kind of you know self-doubt in it's there.
Hmm.
And then at one moment, he just makes the choice and just runs through the rain, right,
Hmm.
through these small town, and then runs to the ball where this is happening.
Oh God,
I
why I am so confused? That's what he says, and he starts running. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't remember that as much, but I was like, man, this is it, this is so cool. And he goes, and then you see that this entire room is filled with people who put their best attire on, their best face on, their best hair on, their best shoes on. And this guy soaking wet from rain. And there's nothing that is screaming that, oh, this is a ballroom, right? I mean, yo, you just fit in right here. But actually, he does fit in there because of what he feels and what he wants to do. And then he just goes there and she's already dancing with somebody. And then he's like, hey, something. I don't remember now
Hmm.
what did they say or not, but then they kiss. And I was like,
Hmm.
dude, this is it. This is Oliver Stone. This is the craft that I'm here for.
Okay. Um, I the scene that really for me kind of stayed with me is the first parade where the veterans are in the wheelchair, and then so
There
they
is a
are
special veteran
flinching.
on that
No,
wheelchair, right?
and no, the first one. There
No,
is
no,
one.
there is
Yes,
a
yes.
special there is
Yeah,
a
yeah.
special veteran on
Ron Kovic,
wheelchair.
right? Yeah, Ron Kovic
Yep,
himself
is
is there.
himself is there.
Yeah, Ron Kovic himself has made an appearance there. But what I like the most is the whenever they hear these gunshots, so they flinch. And for the first time, yes, few things register, few things stay with you that okay, this is what is going to be the film, basically.
Correct. Yeah,
Because these are soldiers, so they are trained to be around the guns and the bullets. These are the guys, they should not flinch when they hear the bullets, but they know what happens after a bullet hits, and which is why now they flinch. Okay, they were unflinching before that, but then when you see the war, when you see the um, that kind of hell on earth called war, which is when you flinch even at that like a simple gunshot sound. And that's To be honest, that stayed with me. Again, there are no dialogues. It's a very simple scene, but then I don't know if there is any other scene which makes a bigger statement than that one. So that's the first scene which really stayed with me. Then the scene, I believe, I mean, this is where I think you will also agree, are the scenes towards the end of the film with Willem Dafoe. Those scenes are very, very arresting, where you feel like, okay, this is the catharsis. You see that, okay, this is my rebellious phase, but then now I must come back to senses. So where they are in that Mexican desert on wheelchairs, and they are kind of literally spitting at each other and saying that you've not done this, you've not fought the war, you were not even there. And which is when for the first time you see that something inside him is changing, that I can't be constantly in this rage. And because there are people who are going to question me they are going to have these questions, I must do something worthwhile with my time on planet earth. It's okay with this um, kind of life of a disabled, like having mercy at yourself or being victim constantly. I must do something. So for the first time, you see that like something inside Cruz's character changing. So I really like these two scenes. Of course, there are plenty of other scenes. This is a very good film. But then these two films, even cinematically, they stay with you. This is where kind of the triumph of cinema, as you call it. Yeah, that okay, things were there on the page, but then when you see this and when all your senses consume it, you feel something inside you also changing. You feel that inside my head also I'm going somewhere. Now I'm also on a journey. So these two scenes definitely stayed with me a lot.
Sure, sure. Yeah, definitely. I think the word there in the first thing that you were mentioning is the PTSD that they have, right? The post-traumatic, right? So, I personally I have a personal experience with this that I I was sitting next to a war veteran, like he was like 5 feet from me, and there was a lightning, a
Hmm.
thunderstorm, and it just there was a crack of lightning there, and this guy just spooked
Mm,
himself, and then he said, that's what war does to you. That's what
correct.
he said to me, and he didn't even need a gunshot, but just it was just this loud crackling noise. So seeing it firsthand, to him, and I was like, okay, I understand you. So in addition to the two that you mentioned, I think also typically I think all usually the reviewers mention this one scene in the middle of the movie, which is the one inside the house when he's screaming, he's drunk his ass off and then going at it, just like on all different directions, right? I mean, there is this not only just a anti-war, but also kind of an anti-religion sort of a
Thou shall
sentences that
not
he has
kill.
to,
Thou
thou
shall
shall
not
not
kill.
kill.
Thou shall
Correct,
not kill.
correct. And it goes to the heart of it's the same American postcard family that would have that discussion, like the better dead than red. It kind of runs, I believe, at least in my opinion,
So
it things
you mentioned
seems like it.
PTSD. I don't think PTSD was even a word coined
Word then,
around that time.
no. There
Okay,
was what was it called?
his mother says that you need help, but then the help
Correct.
is that go to
Yes.
Jesus for the help.
Right, right,
Okay,
right.
they can't even think of like getting a professional help. Like obviously there is a talk of that, but then nobody else is having that discussion. Means for them the ultimate
True.
kind of savior in this case is God. And that's the religious household that you see, that
Sure.
in every house you see a cross, and then again you invoke God and quotes from Bible in like a simple conversations. And which is very startling. At the same time, you know that okay, this is not necessarily Bible belt, but then this is like one of those conservative religious household where this is very common.
Yeah, I think the word didn't exist. You're right. I think the word was shell shock
Mm,
then. So like soldiers came back home shell shocked. I think
mm.
that was the expression. So, but eventually it got that PTSD as some official term. But yeah, you're right. And I think the help there was. they didn't understand it as much, I guess. And then if you don't understand, I think there was no help, sort of a medical therapeutic, therapy kind of stuff. I don't know if it existed then. Again, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
at that point of time, we have one flew over cuckoo's nest, right? Where lo lobotomy
Yes.
was the
People were learning about it. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. The scenes that we've not mentioned are the scenes where he's in recovery. Okay, he is in the hospital. Okay, those are the harrowing scenes. War scenes we've seen plenty of times, but then we've not seen the scenes where you are in a military hospital and then you are going through this recovery and the uh, kind of medical attention that you are getting. And this film kind of shines a very, very strong light on the kind of medical facility that they got at that time. Uh, I don't have any data how things are currently, but clearly at that time, there are many who could not dispute this part of the film. They had a lot of other objections about the film, but then they could not dispute this part of the film, that how they were treated in the hospital. Those scenes are harrowing. At the same time, kudos to Oliver Stone and Tom Cruise for keeping it as real as possible, because this is where you could have taken few poetic licenses and shown few things symbolically, but in fact they went other way around, and which makes film all the more harrowing, that the point that they would like to make, because you would like to see why he is thinking the way he is thinking. You would like to see why, kind of, because on one side Ron Kovic was completely like patriotic and he thought that this is the war, like we are on the right side and this is the war that we must fight and I'll be right at the front and center of the war, if you like. But then at the same time he went like completely on the other side where he said no, this is not really our war to fight, and I don't think we should fight this war. So to have such a big journey, your character has to go through a metamorphosis, if you like. I know, like this is quite a big word that I'm using, but then I think to justify that, you need these scenes. I know this is a real story, but then Oliver Stone has played with the real story also. I'll come to that. I'll give you one example where he's played with the real story, but um, so I think those scenes we've not mentioned, but then those scenes are also equally important, and those scenes stay with you even more than the other scenes.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things I remember from watching it the first time. I was like, oh, what is this? What exactly is happening here? And I think the purpose, it's not a gimmick. I don't think those scenes are a gimmick. I think it's the purpose of those, in my opinion, was that if you peel that top layer of parade, that, oh, look at the veterans. But then underneath, how those same veterans are treated. I think that's what he wanted to hint upon, at least in those scenes. That's the impression I got.
So,
So to the
um,
metamorphosis that you were mentioning, it was necessary to that he at one point of time he was just an observer saying, "Oh, look at this great war veteran." And then once he becomes the war veteran, I was like, "What are you doing to me? Why are
mm,
you treating me like this?"
mm,
And then this personal journey that he's going through, this uh, understanding, okay, no, they're not gonna put me on a soft pillow. No.
yeah. So I think so. Those scenes were needed. So I think it was a very good scripting choice, is what I would say. I'm going to mention something that I don't know if you've noticed, but then this is again a film where very good use of music and very clever use of music. Uh, Background music, I believe, is by John Williams, and then he's used a lot of popular songs also into it. And there is one song which I found the usage itself I found really interesting, and that is the harrowing scenes where literally the human excrement, okay, a bedpan is being cleaned up, okay, and so at that time the background song is Brown Eyed Girl. Okay, I don't know if you know. So, Brown Eyed Girl is a song by Van Morrison. This is a romantic song.
Yeah.
Okay, but then that brown color, he has connected with this brown color, is
Yeah.
one. But at the same time, This is a harrowing scene. That blow is softened by a romantic tune in the background, romantic, happy, peppy tune in the background. And I thought this is a very clever choice. And which is why, in fact, you feel you can actually take up these scenes, because if you go with a harrowing scene, then that's it. Then this is, I mean, I'll go in depression if I start watching this. But then I wanted to mention this usage of music. Means overall package, overall background score is really good. But then this one really stayed with me, where I heard, I know this song. Yeah, this is Brown Eyed Girl. And then I immediately, oh, it is a Brown Eyed Girl.
Yeah, definitely. No, I don't know if it softened it. I think it made it worse because he not only killed your inner senses, but he also killed whatever you felt about that song. Because next time you're gonna hear a brown-eyed girl, you're gonna be like, oh, they used it in brown, in that scene.
Yeah, it is what it is. But then I found that part interesting, and I thought, no, I must mention this, because I don't know, it's kind of very personal experience for me that, oh, okay, I'm making this connection. Yeah, suddenly I'm hearing Brown Eyed Girl here. Nice, cool.
Well,
Do you want
the
to talk about?
Mhm.
Sorry,
Go ahead. No, no,
no,
no.
no, no. Actually, I was going to move to the
Please go ahead.
reception of the
Yeah,
film.
go for it. Go for it.
Okay, even before reception, I must mention. In the introduction, I mentioned the release date. Okay, let me quickly check again. The release date, I believe, was 20th December, 1979, 1989, of course. Yeah, 20th
Right.
December 1989. Uh, the reason it was released on 20th December 1989, because to qualify for all the awards.
Yeah.
So on 20th December,
Yeah.
so they had a limited release, and then they had a wider release. So they could not plan wider release in the short span of time, but then at the same time they wanted to qualify because they knew that, yeah, they'll definitely kind of pick up few awards in this round. And there was a buzz around the film, and which is why, yeah, they ensured that the film is released on 20th December 89 and not in 90, because then it would go into the 90 round of the awards. So that is one. Number two, there were reports when this film was released that people were fainting when they were watching the film. Yeah, in the cinema hall, yeah, people fainted. So there were few reported cases. Okay, now I'm going to share Oliver Stone's reaction. I don't even blame him. Okay, Oliver Stone kind of slightly bigged it up. He said, yes, people are fainting. Okay. And then obviously, see, you want that sort of reaction, right? You don't want indifference. If you make anything, you either hate me strongly or you like me strongly. But then indifference is the reaction that nobody likes. So obviously, he never wanted, or he wouldn't have wanted people that, oh, they went to sleep while watching my film. 2.5 hour long film, they went to sleep. Instead of that, they fainted. Is a very good reaction. It kind of makes a very good headline also. So these sort of headlines were there. Oliver Stone was saying yes to everything. And then finally, because people also were making these 999 calls, right? The emergency call. I don't know what's the number in US.
911.
911. Okay, so it is 999 here. So they were making these calls. So the investigative reporters, obviously, they are trained to verify the stories, and which is something I really like, which is why I like newspapers. So they actually called up people like the medical support personnel that, okay, were you getting these phone calls, and do you know the reason and all that? And then some of them said that, no, I think they just skipped their medication, which is why they fainted. It was not necessary. It was not necessarily the film. It was not necessarily the film. But then there were sporadic incidences where people fainted, and at the same time it was not universally loved. There were critics who hated it also. They thought that this is slightly over the top, and then it is one of those films which is actually not going anywhere, or it is almost a propagandist.
So, regarding the criticism of the movie, I was doing some reading, and the famous Pauline Kael, she wrote a review for this movie. And if I can. bring this up here. It's almost inconceivable that Ron Kovic was as innocent as the movie and the 1976 autobiography on which it's based make him out to be. Was this kid kept in a bubble? At some level, everybody knows about the ugliness of war. Didn't he ever read anything on the Civil War? Not even the Red Badge of Courage? When he was growing up, kids were into black humor, sarcasm, and put-ons. If he was as vulnerable to media influences as the movie and the book indicate, wouldn't he have heard of Catch-22 and One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest? Wouldn't he have looked at Mad? Ron seems to have blotted out everything that didn't conform to his priggish views. When his younger brother is singing the times they are changing, it doesn't mean anything to him. And somewhere she also mentions that the whole idea of growing up is to develop a bullshit detector. And he didn't. So that's her primary critic of this
Mm-hmm.
movie. But but I would disagree to that.
Yeah.
I mean, you see him running through the rain, right, to kiss the girl, right? Come on.
Yeah.
It's very, very possible by that age that he hadn't developed that bullshit detector. So that is very, very possible, at least to my, that's what I think. My critic of this movie was nobody mentions too much about this, at least not I have seen it, is that Ron Kovic went there the second time. That was his second tour. What happened during the first tour? So we don't know. I mean, did he have to? Again, again, this is again, Oliver Stone also went there two times. Once he was teacher, as you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, and then
Yeah.
second time. So again, I tried to dig into this. Again, personally, this is what I think, and I don't wanna. I'm not trying to badmouth or question Ron Kovic. As I mean, I'm sitting in a room, right? I mean, I have no
And he can come
experience of
anytime
anything.
in that room. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. No, but it's just I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're selling me this story, what happened during the first time? Is all I am curious about.
Mm-hmm.
Probably you were sort of getting into it, and then eventually it got full blown in the second time. Probably that's what happened, and I would buy that.
Mm-hmm.
But if why go back, right? I mean, again, that's just my personal critique of this movie. At least the movie didn't explain what was going on.
Ron Kovic is not here, so I will try to explain what I understood of it. I think this boy was um, kind of pumped with the sense of patriotism, so much so that for him this was a almost a higher calling, that this is where I belong. This is a boy. Now, this is where the biggest plot kind of trick that we are going to divulge is that this is a boy who was born on 4th July. This is too big a burden. And because then you constantly get fed with these pills called patriotism. And then us and them and world over, yeah, you have to have the American values everywhere in the world. And American values are the superior values. If you have that kind of ingrained in your system, it becomes very difficult to completely lose that. As far as this part is concerned, that whether his views changed or not, I don't think his views changed just by what he saw uh, on the front in the war. I think his views changed much later when the he started question. I think much later when he went through the recovery and then he went through his own kind of trying to assimilate with the civil life, because his army life, his marine life is over, and now he's trying to assimilate with the civil life, and which is where he finds all these kind of mismatches and contradictions. So that is my reading. That I don't think it was overnight. I think it happened slowly. And if you see in the hospital, yeah, he's there is a scene where he's watching a scene of protest. Okay, there is a protest going on, and which is where actually he is not happy with the protest. He is saying them that love it or leave it. So this is a constant line that he is using, that love it or leave it. That means you can't question. If you question immediately, he's now Ron Kovic is questioning their love for America. And so that's the part he learns. I mean, that's a key, means he finds a key to unlock this, that no, it is possible. That you can still love America and question it. You can still be as patriotic and participate in a protest. So that is how I saw it. So for me, these things were not in question. And there is one more part that will come later. Don't worry. Means second part of this answer, I'll come later.
No, I think that's a good. I could buy that, and
Mm,
there is definitely a journey from the hospital to becoming a full-blown anti-war protester. He doesn't become anti-war. I mean, he's not even anti-war even in when he goes to Mexico, right?
mm,
So there is this something happening. So there is an arc.
yes.
So there is a questioning of it, but he doesn't become a full-blown anti-war protester. So there is that explanation, that curve definitely is there, that character arc.
Yes. So that definitely means I kind of bought into the cause of the war, to conscription, to this unrest, to Ron Kovic story. So I think what uh, I was keen to understand is this zeitgeist, because if you consider only Ron Kovic story in isolation, then I don't think it fully explains what is going on here and why he is of this view. But then if you understand all these aspects, then you think that, you know what, I think he has a very strong case in this case, and I am actually on the side of Ron Kovic than the other.
Yeah, yeah, it does make me question too that is it really because in its own format, in its own structure, it doesn't do a very well job of the movie. That doesn't do a very well job of explaining how he got to this point completely. We're not there 100%, and at the same time, uh, where we kind of get the, at least the way I got it, I kind of got the idea that okay, okay, so he was mistreated, and then they didn't care about him after this happened, but the movie became kind of preachy to me. So I didn't delve as much as you
Mhm,
did into this. I was sort of looking at it more from a film perspective
mhm,
that is this guy able to convince me from using the scene and things like that. So the I I'm not so sure if at least in my mind, the movie succeeds as a really good anti-war narrative. If I think I mentioned this to you as well. I think Full Metal Jacket is a little bit more convincing to me anti-war movie than than this movie is. And speaking of Nana Patekar, right? I mean, he
mhm,
did Prahar.
mhm,
Prahar is a very unique war movie that was made, and I along the lines of Full Metal Jacket for sure. But it's definitely there is anti-war, and they don't preach in it. They actually show you, what's happening more so. There is no speaking of like I was already seeing, what's happening here. You don't have to come and tell me that, oh, this is how it is, and then this is what it is, and oh, the government lied to me, and then I mean we already see it. It kind of became overblown, and at least in this aspect, I agree with Paul and Keel because she says, I have not read the book by Ron Kovic, but I think she says that Ron Kovic's book was a little bit more silent uh, and more convincing. I think she mentions the anti-war narrative than these full-blown, like, all drums allowed
mhm.
version that's going on in this movie.
Okay, I'm going to mention two parts because you mentioned book, so I'll make 2 points now. Um, Not directly connected to what you said, extension of that. So one part is where uh, how faithful the film is to the book. Okay, so there is one scene which is not there in the book, which is the apology to Wilson's family. So that scene, so where Ron Kovic travels all the way to Wilson's family and then he
It's not in
apologizes.
the book.
It is not in the book.
They made
So
it up or what? Is
Ron
it
Kovic
true?
never apologized.
Dude,
So
look
yeah,
at Oliver Stone.
so Ron Kovic
Come on,
never
this
apologized.
guy.
So the thing is, so when Ron Kovic was Oliver Stone was confronted about this part, and which is when he said, means Ron Kovic's entire book is an apology. Yeah, he need not go and apologize. His entire book is an apology, which is a cop out. I know, but then I just wanted to put that on record. Listeners or you
No, I
may
understand.
find this
Yeah.
interesting. Second part is that I think in 2024, because we are obviously having this discussion on 2024, and if they really try to convert this into a screenplay, most likely, yeah, this will be a box set. This will be like a 12 episode drama where you will have a backstory for Willem Dafoe's character also, and which that is something I don't like. I like film as a film. I don't like watching like massive drama series, yeah, where you have 24 episodes and
Yeah,
23
to add
episodes.
some nuance to it.
Yeah, yeah, just because yeah, you have time and then you want to fill some, yeah, make more episodes out of it. So I don't like, but then most likely, so I think fortunately this film was made in 1989, and so that was just as well, because if you make it now, most likely it will get butchered and watered down in a sprawling drama version somewhere on Hulu, Netflix, or HBO. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I was glad about that part.
Yeah, I think the whatever the time frame I think is enough for this movie. That's what I felt too.
Yes, yes. There is one scene, again, very small point, the baby crying. Okay, so there is a baby crying, which is used in the background. Um, I'm sure you and millions of listeners, I'm sure they know that it is a known torture technique. This is,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So this is a CIA's technique,
Wow.
where, yeah, because that sound is so heart-wrenching that it is a torture. And so that sound is used in the film, where he has these kind of nightmares and where he could hear a baby is crying.
Wow. For the millions of listeners, if you're interested, please put some references in the comment section.
About
Like,
more
I mean,
CIA techniques,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, we should, I think, for our listeners to go back to like, oh, is it true?
That's our show. Just to remind you, you are listening to Mangala Talkies. In this episode, we talked about Oliver Stone's Born on the 4th July. If you liked what you listened, why not subscribe to our podcast channel? If you wish to rave our show, head to that comment section and pour your heart out. We would love to read that. See you in the next episode. Until then, bye.